This is the 4th day of June. It's a beautiful day in Los Angeles, a little overcast. We're going to hear from Jasmine first on her reflections on being a fact group member.
Can I go? Okay. So growing up, most of us are taught that human activity is the cause for global warming. And whenever you're posed or you come across any skeptics, you don't really listen to them or hear them out. You know they're a skeptic. And at least for myself, I automatically associate them with fact deniers, or what do they know? And so I've never really been exposed to the arguments of a skeptic. So when I was faced with the challenge of having to oppose something that I've believed my whole life, I thought it was going to be impossible, and I didn't think that I would find any research. I thought I had the hardest task in the world. But interestingly enough, when we started doing our research, we actually came across a lot of science and scientists that were very credible, that had actual things to say about the opposition of human activity being responsible for global warming. But even though I was able to come up with good arguments, I still was really nervous because our surveys showed in the beginning of the quarter that everybody agreed that human activity was responsible for global warming. But the fact that we were able to get some people to vote for us by the end meant that all it takes is some exposure to get you to think. After I had been exposed to all of the debates, I actually changed some of my views about global warming, and I now am skeptic when I hear heavy facts, and I am I feel like the alarm is very exaggerated, and this is due to the lack of credibility that I now find in scientists and in the technology that the scientists base their sciences off of. As we saw in every single fact group, they were able to have the same information, and scientists would pose exact opposite arguments on the same thing. For example, in our debate, we had 400 ppm of carbon in the atmosphere, and we said that it was very minimal, and we had scientists Harvard educated people backing it up. And then the opposing group had the exact same information, saying it was a really big deal, and they had very educated scientists backing it up too. So how can we really take it as facts if we have two opposing sides saying opposite things? So I've kind of lost my credibility in scientists, and I realized that I need to find my own research and that I am the scientist. But since the whole alarm about global warming was brought to us by scientists, I've kind of lost the faith in the alarm. And then on top of that, we've seen throughout the debates that there is a lack of credibility in the technology that the scientists also base their claims off of. And so just with my lack of faith in the technology and in the scientists, even though I still will continue to be environmentally concerned, and I will still be cautious, my change is that I no longer feel global warming is so dire or as catastrophic as I initially thought it was.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's hear from Austin, please.
It's 3 minutes, right?
3 minutes. Behind the podium. On deck, Laura. Is Laura in the house? Can you come up and bring your paper with you and sit next to Mackenzie Phillips there? Oh, you're very tall.
And you only came out with a minister too?
Okay, he's managing attention, communicating respect, finding friendly eyes near the front within it. Say your name, feel the love, start your speech.
Now, Mark Twain popularized a quote that there are three types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. Now, this is the essence of what I have found inside of basically my time on the fact group. Now, being a debater, I kind of already knew this to be the case, but I can kind of take a statistic that may make something, I can pretty much make it say either thing. We found that critical in this debate. Now, what we were debating was whether or not scientists can accurately predict climate events. Now, I clearly remember getting the email from our gracious leader, Chloe, saying that I would be arguing on the proposition side, and my heart immediately dropped. Because I thought for sure I'm going to be defending something that is inherently false, and I'm going to have to convince a room full of skeptics of this. Now, instantly, I was very disappointed, and I was not happy to have to do this. But what I found was that as I started to research it, I think I actually believed it. I found statistics that could back up these claims, even though I'd read so many that went against it. I mean, this leaves us with two options. Either one, I'm just a really good salesman, or two, that really there's statistics that can say everything and that can actually defend a claim that everyone here may know to be false. Now, I mean, they say that that scientists being able to accurately predict weather events is the 6th most common contrarian myth. That's what everyone thinks. And I thought that, well, yeah, it's not really a myth, it's just true. Scientists can't predict it. But what I found doing my research is that there are actually tons of new studies that have shown that you can predict it. Articles like the James Ribsey that I brought up in my own, where using meta-analysis, you can start to predict it. But even though I could bring up all this evidence, when we look on the negative side, they bring up just as much. They bring up more than we had, showing why it's false. And all it really shows is that there's going to be numbers, and there's going to be data, and there's going to be evidence that will say whatever you want it to. And what I think we've really gotten back from this whole thing, what I've learned from it, is that when you're trying to make a valid argument, you can't rely on evidence. You can't rely on what someone says, what some number says. But you have to rely on the logic that underlies it. You have to look at, does this make sense to me as a person? I think that's really the essence of what I've picked up in this class and debate. It's not how to use evidence instead of an important manner, but it's how to use logic to convince an audience. I think that's something that's critical, and that is what it really ties back to the quote, where there's 3 types of lies. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. No matter what someone tells you, they can always find something to defend their side. But it's up to you, as a skeptical observer, to use your own logic and to try to come up with a logical decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on deck will be, is Stephanie in the house?
Yes.
Okay, good. Have your paper ready to hand me and walk up next. Rock and roll.
Ready?
Yes.
All right. So I'd like to start my speech with a quote from Kevin Hart. The funny thing is, all my friends are short. I wasn't aware of tall people until I got to high school. I didn't know they existed. I was very sheltered. That quote really speaks to kind of my experience with this whole global warming debate. I grew up in an extremely conservative town, like lots of climate deniers. People just really believed the debate was over and global warming did not exist, no such thing. Kind of the opposite from Jasmine. And I didn't really know how to react coming into this class with people with really strong opinions, believing that it was, so strongly decided in the other direction. And I was very unsure about how this class was going to go and how I was going to engage in that. But through the debate process and engaging with Chloe and Jasmine and Stephanie on our proposition, I was able to thoroughly examine the evidence, and through that opportunity for debate and the space to examine this evidence more critically, have reevaluated some of my previously skeptical positions. First of all, a position that I reevaluated was that global warming exists at all, and I think that through these conversations with Chloe, have really looked at some of the evidence showing and demonstrating that there is a rise in global climate temperatures. Also, something that I have changed that I initially did not believe has been the fact that humans do actually contribute to the increase in greenhouse gases. The more we consume, the more we manufacture, the more greenhouse gases and CO2 emissions that we're emitting into the atmosphere. So this process of buying a sweatshirt, simple enough to clothe yourself, and the more people, the more we consume, the more we contribute to increased CO2 levels. Something that actually stayed the same, one of our contentions was that greenhouse gases warm the earth, and I am actually still remaining skeptical about that issue. I am hesitant on this issue because there's a lot of evidence for a correlational relationship. And that's just it. It's just correlational. I think it takes a lot more than showing that they line up to actually prove that one causes the other. And especially the skeptical environmentalists provided an alternate explanation when it discussed solar radiation and its effects. And I think that was a really strong suggestion. And I don't think that we can rule that out. For myself, I cannot accept that proposition until the end. I just dropped my beer, that's fine. Basically, so I used to be a denialist that didn't believe in anything, not believe in anything. I believed that global warming didn't exist, but after going through this engaging process, have learned to reevaluate, and now I am no longer a short person with short friends. I am a short person among tall people, and I'm aware of them. Not only am I aware of them, but I realize I'm a few inches taller than I was.
Thank you so much. Very nice. Thank you, everyone, for respecting the time limit. Now we'll hear from Stephanie. And on deck is Jasmine here.
Okay, I already went.
Jasmine already went. So is Elliot here? Elliot here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
So I'm going to
great.
use my dino phone too.
So you're next, Elliot.
Probably haven't seen this in a while, guys.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Do I have your da-da-da? Yeah, good.
So, as the old adage goes, people who look through keyholes are apt to get the idea that all ideas are keyhole shaped. Now, prior to this debate, I saw the world and the issue of global warming through a keyhole, and a keyhole that was shaped and molded by my peers, society, and even my professors. And what I failed to realize was that by looking through this keyhole, it inhibited my ability to think critically about the issue. And I previously just accepted those facts that fit through that already molded and created keyhole. So prior to this debate, I, like many of you, thought it was indisputable that human activity was responsible for global warming. However, unbeknownst to me, in signing up for the debate, I was not only signing up to persuade all of you, but ultimately to persuade myself. And so today I'm going to take you through some of the three main arguments that have ultimately led me to my current belief, namely that human activity is not responsible for global warming. And then I'm also going to show you my reasoning for that. So this topic is of significance to all of you because it has severe implications when we answer the question of what is responsible for global warming. If indeed human activity is responsible, there's a sense in which this suggests we are partially able to reduce or perhaps even reverse global warming. Whereas if human activity is not responsible, this may suggest that we just need to learn more or that it's not so worrisome in the first place to begin with. So first of all, yes, human activity does increase carbon dioxide, and all things being equal, carbon dioxide will increase and warm the Earth. But what I learned in my research was that all things are not equal. And first and foremost, CO2 plays vital other roles in the climate system and in the Earth at large. And also one of the articles on the website really stuck out to me when it talked about the temperature flap that we're currently experiencing. I thought, how could this be if we're increasing unprecedented amounts of CO2 and yet the temperature is remaining flat? Just didn't make sense to me. And then also in my research, I began to learn about these natural mechanisms, including solar activity, which even Lomborg says solar activity and greenhouse gas effect together contribute to global warming, and then aerosols, El Nino, and such. And then finally, the whole argument in support of the scientific consensus. Well, first and foremost, I think good science, insofar it is reproducible, it stands alone. And then furthermore, one of the articles on the website talks about how the scientific consensus, the studies behind the scientific consensus are flawed in their methodology. So now, taken together through all my research and preparing, I've come to the belief that human activity is not responsible. And now I've been provided the opportunity to step back away from that keyhole and to use my own critical analysis and lens to take the facts for what they are. And so today I ask you, through what keyhole do you view the world and global warming issues? And how is that keyhole impinging you or influencing the way you see and think of those topics?
Thank you. Nice tie back. Okay, that brings us to Elliot. Is Aubrey in the house? Okay, you'll be next. followed by Sarah.
Yeah.
For this, I think I talked a lot more about my performance in my individual debate than everything overall. Yes. Okay. So I want to start out by telling you guys a little bit about myself. Anyone who knows me knows that public speaking is like my absolute worst fear. I'm just not a public speaker, and so you would expect that I wouldn't do very well in a debate. And that was basically the case in my debate. My poor communication was simply my fatal flaw. And that's what I learned what debate is all about. It's about persuasion, presentation, and strategic creative delivery just as much as, if not more than, the evidence used to support one's assertion. In our initial preparation for the debate, Aubrey and I quickly discovered that our argument can be supported from a number of different angles. And naturally, we wanted to use all of these angles to our advantage. And so we underwent extensive research to support all of these assertions. As a result, we had way too much information, and our minds were a little bit cluttered, and we did not have enough time. We didn't focus enough on the big picture or on the delivery of that information. Essentially, we didn't present our information strategically and clearly enough. And in putting aside the importance of that delivery and that presentation, the well-researched information we had did not gain the attention it deserved. We did not use nearly enough logic, repetition, or other creative strategies such as humor, analogies, and storytelling that would have made the information not only easier to comprehend, but more retainable for the audience and more engaging and impactful. Additionally, we lacked a connection of all of the information to bring it together cohesively, a strategy that the opposing side was very good at. Overall, I felt that if we'd organized our briefs differently, by narrowing down our arguments and organizing our assertions and evidence strategically, we wouldn't have been so overwhelmed with our information, and we would have been able to focus more on the presentation and the delivery of that information more, which is what I found truly matters in a debate. In reflecting my individual performance, my faults stem from my presentation and delivery, like I've said. I was monotonous, I was rushed, I wasn't dynamic, I didn't engage the audience, and I was not extemporaneous with my speaking. And after watching other debates, I see the incredible importance in one's presentation. Persuasion is everything, and persuasion comes not from what is being said, but how it is being said. My beliefs toward the resolution before and after my debate are very similar. Prior to the debate, I was unsure which position I held, but I was confident in the side I was arguing due to prior research in the field from other classes. While Aubrey and I's excessive focus on research turned out to be our main flaw, this preparation actually made us complete experts in our field. I firmly stand with what I argued, and I do firmly stand now that global warming is human-induced, and it is a very serious problem that we need to address. It has serious threats to humanity and to the earth, and because of this, something needs to happen. In conclusion, from my experience in my debate, and from engaging and witnessing all of the debates of others throughout this quarter, I'm confident in how to debate and the importance behind the different debate techniques, and also in my conclusion that global warming is a serious problem.
Thank you, Elliot. Very nice.
I'm gonna do like a 10-second readout.
Yeah. Okay, next please. Hi. On deck will be Sarah.
Yeah.
And then Kachi. Is he here? Okay. Rock and roll. Oh, you're tall. Okay, just a minute. Okay, I gotcha.
Imagine yourself wearing neutral tones. You look around to find other men and women dressed exactly like you. And you look down to find a metal object or other metal boxes with knobs and buttons on them. And then as you're peering into the distance, you see like a roughly cut object coming straight at you. It isn't until it's too late that you notice that it's a tank. In the military, if you wait until you realize that you're in grave danger, you're dead, said Admiral David Tintley in 2013 in a TED Talk about climate change. And my whole question is, what if you would have recognized these facts as a whole and their dangers together, rather than looking at their dangers when they stood alone? Based on global warming facts, I still have an alarmist view instead of denying these facts separately. And the significance of this is I feel like if you realize their dangers all together, you realize their dangers on a planet as a whole and on our entire population. I did the Fact 2 debate with Elliot, and we debated whether extreme climatic events are imminent consequences of global warming. And in our debate, the opposition side did get the majority vote. However, we still, like Elliot said, we had a great amount of evidence. We had reliable sources. We had just like pages and pages of everything. And we tried to organize it in a logical sense of cause and effect, just like how we said, oh, temperature is rising and it's causing melting, which is then doesn't have sheets that can reflect the sunlight, which is then causing these heat waves. So we tried to do it by a step-by-step logical basis. However, like she said, the blood of our loss was on our hands. It wasn't necessarily that I felt like the facts of the opposing team were stronger than ours, but just the fact that our quality lacked because the other side depreciated the quality of our evidence by having the same sources and having contradicting evidence, as well as the quantity. We were lost in our quantity. We had such an overwhelming amount of evidence that we couldn't emphasize, we couldn't stress, we couldn't repeat anything, which is also very important when adding all these facts together. Like a few decision makers even said, we couldn't even focus on imminence at all. And coming into this for global warming, I knew nothing about global warming. I agreed with Al Gore when he said that Manhattan was going to flood, and then I also agreed with that the aliens caused global warming about the horses and computer models not being true, so I was all over the place. But then once I compiled the facts all together and didn't look at them, denying them separately, I realized that I now have an alarmist view of this because, like Charlie even said, I don't have that 50% doubt that makes me not agree with it. As far as what kind of evidence and facts I still deem true, I still believe in everything we put in our argument. Nothing that was in our argument we had is false. So it's important to add up all these facts together and not deny them separately to see their dangers. If you would have looked at the camo and the gun by itself, or the army and the tank by itself, you might have not seen the danger, but all four of them together do have this. So we are on a battlefield of danger, and unless we add up these facts and take notice of what is true and false, we can't place value or take action in policy to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. Okay, is Kachi here? Okay, next will be Towel after Sarah. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Sarah, and it's my pleasure to speak with all of you guys today. Don't believe everything you read. I'm sure many of you, like me, have heard this statement many times before, but I never really understood its significance until taking this class. When I found out this class was going to focus on climate change, I have to admit I wasn't very excited. For me, the debate was over. I thought that everyone like me knew it was caused by human activity and it was going to have catastrophic consequences in my lifetime. Well, after taking this class, this view's changed somewhat. While I still believe that global warming is an anthropogenic issue that we should pay attention to, I'm a lot more skeptical about what we know about its consequences. I don't think we know for certain what's going to be the consequence of global warming, nor when these consequences are going to occur. And this is important for all of you, because if we grant adherence to alarmist conjectures that aren't grounded in concrete science, it's going to impact our policies, our economy, and our environment. So for my debate, I was asked to debate whether or not hurricanes and other extreme climate events are imminent consequences of global warming. Now, I was the opposition leader for this debate, and I thought that was unfairly difficult. I felt I had to argue against a resolution that ultimately I thought was true, because that's what the media told me, right? Well, actually, after doing a lot of research, I found that scientists weren't so sure. I found important statements made by the IPCC and the WCRP that showed doubt and uncertainty with regards to their ability to predict climate events as an effect of global warming. And this was essential for the debate and essential for my overarching understanding of the issue. I realized that what I'd been doing was believing everything I was reading. I also deemed a lot of the facts that the proposition brought up to be true, especially those about global warming increase and sea level rise. But the problem was those facts didn't prove that hurricanes and other extreme climate events were imminent, as defined as the next 25 years. And as such, I'm happy to say that I genuinely do believe now that that resolution is premature. And my view about global warming has taken a similar journey. I realize now that based on all the films that we've watched, all the articles that we've read, listening to all of your guys' wonderful debates, that although I do think that global warming is a human issue, and that we should each take responsibility and try and reduce our carbon emissions, because honestly, why not? I now realize that actually the issue is exaggerated, and we don't know what the consequences are. We just don't. So now I realize the importance of not believing everything you read, and I'm able to challenge these assertions and look for evidence. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, Tal is next. Is Stephen Williams in the house? How about Matthew Kruger? What?
So I'm just going to spend my speech up.
Get the attention of your audience. Oh, she's managing attention, communicating respect non-verbally, finding friendly eyes near the front and center. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
So I'm just going to spend my speech by telling you how my views on climate change has transformed throughout this course. So when I came into this course, I was a very strong believer in climate change. I believed that it was human-induced and that was harmful. And even for my debate topic, scientists using statistical models can't accurately predict future climate events. I was very strongly invested in that topic as well, because I had a strong background in statistics actually, and I've done a lot of modeling for my research. So I was very motivated to prove that I was right. But throughout the course of debate, and as I listened to everyone's facts, and I actually saw how I became swayed by both sides, and I think that's a real good testament to how uncertain I actually was in originally. That I actually didn't have a strong foundation for my beliefs, because I was so easily swayed, and I saw that both sides actually had very credible facts and did a very good job at persuading and arguing those facts as well. So, and it made me realize how quick I was to judge and like all my preconceptions about climate change. And so now I feel like I am much more open-minded to the climate change debate. I wouldn't say that I'm a complete alarmist like I was in the beginning, and I wouldn't say I'm like a complete denialist either. And I feel like kind of labeling both sides like that kind of gives a false impression that like one side might have more facts than the other, or the one side's facts are more true than the other. When in reality, both sides have very legitimate facts. And I feel like I learned that we shouldn't really rush to prejudgments, and really we should explore both sides from every perspective as much as possible. Thank you.
What was the time?
Left.
Okay, you only used 2 of your 3 minutes.
2 to 3. Oh,
okay.
I'm gonna do 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. You want to use all 3 of your minutes if you can.
Oh, okay.
Hi. On deck is Matthew Kruger.
Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm Steve.
Hi, Stephen. Oh, you're tall.
He's tall.
Okay, roll.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Steven. And at the beginning of the quarter, as all of you guys have mentioned, I too was I considered global warming to be I was alarmist to global warming, and I believed it a lot. And I was adamant about global warming existing through all the technologies. And this belief was further facilitated when we first watched The Inconvenient Truth. This caused me to I thought my belief in global warming was solidified. And I was like, okay, that's it, this debate's over. Whoever thinks global warming is right. Then came the Great Swindle, and it completely changed my entire perspective on global warming for the first time actually. Throughout my life, I would always consider global warming to be a big threat. For me, after I saw all the debates and all the documentaries that we read and saw in class, I was able to see both sides for the first time, something Stephanie has touched upon. Throughout my life, I was just looking at a little keyhole, which prevented me from being very critical of the information I was looking at. So what I saw was the information. I only looked for the ones that I wanted to hear. I didn't look for the ones that possibly could help me understand the subject better. Whatever I thought was right was whatever I wanted to hear. So that is something that I was able to really get out of as we have progressed into this class. I wanted to say, as I debated, being open-minded was the biggest thing I've learned from this class. You know, as I said before, there's too many information out there, and the facts that I deem that are credible or not, it depends on the criteria. As I've discussed and debated with the scientists, whether they could predict future models, the facts that I stated, they were true. However, according to the criteria and the subject of the debate, they were inaccurate. So facts, it just depends on the criteria, and for anything to be accurate, we just need to see the big picture, and ultimately I believe weighing the cost and the benefit is the best to being able to conclude on our subjects. Thank you.
Time. You have 55 seconds left. Okay, thank you. Mr. Kruger? Is Kachi here? Oh, okay.
I didn't have any staplers.
You don't have a stapler, but fortunately, as a gift, I have a stapler. Oh boy, you have thick paper.
Yeah, it's the only paper I have left, so.
That's great. I love
So it
thick
looks yours.
paper. Yeah, it looks more meaty. Oh, you're tall. I have to focus. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay, rolling.
All right. Is climate change happening? How fast is it happening? Who is responsible for it? And can we predict how fast it will go? These are some of the questions we covered during this class. And I want to focus on my own debate, because I think that the evolution of my opinion with regards to my own debate is most interesting. Because before I started with my debate, I was, to be honest, absolutely convinced that scientists would be able to accurately predict climate events. I thought that scientists were able to do so because of their extensive knowledge, advanced computer technology, and such. However, during the course of my research, my view shifted more towards what I was actually defending, which wasn't only good for my debate itself, but also very interesting to see. I do still believe that scientists in the future, with advances in computer technology and knowledge, will be able to more accurately predict climate events. However, I do not believe that they're capable of doing so now. And why is that the case? Because first of all, looking at the facts, that predictions were wrong in the past. And furthermore, I found many logical explanations for their predictions being wrong. And this is something that even more strengthened my belief, because for me, simple facts are not good enough. I'm a very logical person. I need explanations for everything. And to find explanations for my own argument strengthened my belief that an argument was in fact right. And furthermore, the arguments of my opponents, in contrary to everybody else in the class, did not convince me. In the bottom line, I think the predictions are wrong. And to reflect a bit on this, of course, the most interesting thing is that my opinion changed so much. And I think this is due to the strength of arguments and the strength of evidence. And I think that's one of the main things I learned in this class. The more you learn, and the more you find out about a subject, doesn't necessarily mean that your view on the subject changes, but at least it means that you get a deeper understanding and that you get strengthened in the beliefs you gain. To sum up, yes, I do think climate change is happening. I think climate change is happening right now. I think if you want to stop climate change from happening and to prevent its consequences, you must act right now, but I do not think that scientists are able to accurately predict how fast it will go, and perhaps that's the most scary part.
Very good. Used your full time, Vice. Okay, is Kachi here? Okay, that will bring us to the cleanup hitter, our illustrious chairperson.
Hi, everyone. Alright, now Al Gore said the debate is over in regards to global warming. But I think that all the speeches you just heard are a testament to the fact that that is not a correct statement. I disagree with the idea that we're just going to cut off this debate because as people have brought up, there's compelling evidence on both sides. And I know I'm echoing my other fact group members, but it's interesting how we all have that same idea, how we research one side, then we research our opposition, and we kind of flip-flop back and forth. Now, while I still have some unanswered questions, if you were going to put me on the scale of alarmist to denialist, I'm probably like here. So I still do think that human activity is responsible for global warming, but I do so for better reasons than I had before. Now, on the topic of global warming, it's significant to us because it's affecting the entire world, but also our personal worlds. The policies that are implemented, the laws we have to abide by, especially in California, we're already experiencing it. So it's something that's relevant to us as students as well. Now, I presented on the government side on the question of whether or not human activity is responsible for global warming. One of the things I focused a lot on was the scientific consensus. And our opposition brought up how we cannot base a truth on that, and I agree. However, I do think that a scientific consensus is a good indicator of the truth. However, an argument cannot rely upon it, and that's something I've learned from this process. Now, also, I found it quite interesting how there's such a back and forth of credibility of the same sources that we saw throughout all the fact debates, including our own with the IPCC. It's really interesting how we can take the same piece of evidence and have different interpretations of it, which just goes to show that same idea about how we can manipulate facts, data, statistics to think what we want, which is really why logic is an important part of debate. Now, before the debate, I did believe that human activity was responsible for global warming, and I still do now, but I have a better informed decision about it. Before, I just sort of assumed it was a social norm. I've done research on it, but now I feel like I've also explored the counter-arguments to it, and I think that I have a better, more well-rounded view of it. Now, as a fact debater, it's important to see what facts are true and false, and I grant adherence to the fact that greenhouse gas emissions are causing increases in the global temperature, and human activity is contributing to those rising levels. But I also have questions about natural oscillations in Earth's temperature. I'm not really sure how that could affect Earth's temperature. I think that deserves more research. However, on the topic of natural influences such as solar activity, I do not grant adherence to those because I feel like there's a plethora of data out there from NASA and etc. that proves that there's not a strong enough correlation between those two. However, that's an important question. And going back to Gore's quote that the debate is not over, I disagree because of all the things we've heard so far, how I flip-flop back and forth, how the survey results have changed, people are more unsure, it's evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for using the 7-part outline to tell a nice story to end up the discussion on from the fact group. I guess, we didn't miss any fact group person except the one person, right?
I can text them.
Well, that's life. I guess he's just gone. Okay, let's move on to the values. Value group. Is Gabriella in the house? Hi, Gabriella.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you? I'm gonna grab my phone.
I'm swell. Okay, these are facts.
Sorry, I'm just gonna put my camera on. Okay. Hi, my name is Gabriella. Socrates once said that the only true wisdom is in knowing that you know nothing. I know this isn't a philosophy class, but I couldn't help but reflect back on this quote when thinking about everything that I had read and seen through the duration of this course. I had come into this class holding strong beliefs and attitudes regarding global warming and our contribution to climate change. And when it came down to choosing which argument or debate I wanted to do and the side that I wanted to argue for, it was really a no-brainer for me when choosing that environmental concerns was more important than economic growth. That was something I truly, truly believed. And now looking back on it, I see that I think a part of my conviction in those beliefs is that I was looking at the issue through the lens of a privileged middle-class American citizen, first of all, and the fact that I had never done any real in-depth research on global warming, climate change, or environment versus economics. And so I don't even really know where I came up with the attitudes and beliefs that I held so strong coming into this class, since I hadn't done any real research. And so I will say that throughout the course of my debate and all of the debates that I watched, my opinion was definitely swayed on what I believe to be true. For me, in my debate particularly, I wouldn't say it was the debate itself that changed my opinion really, but it was the research leading up to the debate. I really thought that my side of the debate would be really easy to argue. And it wasn't until I really did the research and looked at the facts and looked at the circumstances of the world and the people living in it, people not living in America, people that might not be as privileged, that aren't even able to meet their basic needs for survival. That's what made it hard for me to make my argument in the debate, and I think that after realizing that while doing the research, I wasn't able to come into the debate as passionate as I thought I would have been. And I think that that became evident in my delivery of the debate because my stance had become shifted. I think the most important thing that I learned from my debate and from watching everyone else's debates is that there are at least two sides to every story. And the side that you think is right isn't necessarily the right one. I believe that this is a point of significance for all of us because I don't think it's a coincidence that everyone's survey results shifted from the beginning of the quarter to the end of the quarter, and that shift mirrored my own opinions in the survey. Basically, in conclusion, I would like to say that I'm decidedly undecided on what I believe to be true in this ongoing debate. But to tie back to my original quote, I would say the only true wisdom is in knowing that you know nothing. I would rather be open-minded than right.
Nice tie back. Okay, next is Saul. Is Saul in the house? Soul. Followed by Maral. And then Amanda. And then Yasmin. Okay. Yeah.
So Professor Miller said that this assignment was all about coming clean. So I'm just going to come out and say it. I used to be an extreme alarmist. Now I'm not particularly proud of this, but I want to share the journey that I had to getting to the point where I am now. When I chose to debate that environmental concerns are more important than economic growth, like Gabby was saying, this was a no-brainer for me because I was so convinced that I didn't even consider the counter-argument. Growing up in extremely liberal schools where people were actually shunned for being Republican, I grew up only listening to one side of the story. And it was just like the environment and human rights over everything. Now, I'm not saying that I don't still hold those values near and dear to my heart, but I've begun to expand my view of the world and stop living in some righteous liberal bubble. When I began to do research on this resolution, I was actually surprised by the lack of evidence we found. I really had to search to find evidence to back up my claim. And I think I was able to build a pretty solid case for what I was saying, but I definitely wasn't convinced as I once was. But the thing that stood out for me in my debate was the cross-examination. When Amanda was cross-examining me, I got very flustered and I started thinking in Spanish, and then I didn't really know what to say. And then, but also when I was cross-examining Maral, I was so excited because I was yeah, I found so much juicy secrets in her evidence, but then she handled it so well, and I was okay, that was frustrating, but props to her for handling it so well. And I think that both Amanda and Maral did an incredibly good job in the debate, and it really made me start to reconsider my beliefs. And now on the basis on the resolution itself, I definitely still believe that environmental concerns are more important than economic growth, so my opinion didn't shift. But before I believed it blindly without any real evidence, like my basis for being an environmentalist was the inconvenient truth. And in one of my own journal entries, I talked about all of the fallacies I found in the film. So, I mean, it kind of was like finding out that Santa Claus didn't exist for me. And I still believe that we should prioritize the environment over the economy, just because it's significant to all of us, because we're depleting the world of its natural resources. But now it's based off of actual evidence, not some floozy evidence I found in a compelling movie. So like I said before, I used to be an alarmist, but after hearing what everybody had to say, I definitely don't believe this imminent catastrophic global warming that I used to so vehemently believe in and advocate. And I actually found myself voting for the opposition in a lot of cases. So catastrophic global warming, I think, is a great story, but it just lacks the evidence to back it up. And I didn't think it was possible, but this class actually really shifted my view of the world, because I used to be a sucker for a good story, hence why I was so, I like the alarmist trap. I fell into that. But now I can view the world more analytically, and I try to be more open-minded about issues that I was previously very biased about. Thank you.
Thank you. What was it? Was that 3 minutes? Yes. What? Are you a fact? Well, I am not done with values yet. Okay, do you have your report ready?
Yeah.
Okay, because we did facts first. We'll double back to you at the end of the value group, okay? Just to not break up the momentum we've got going here. Oh.
So, have you ever been in a really heated argument with someone and you think you have all the right answers, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, shoot, maybe they have a point. But you've already been arguing like so hard, you're like, okay, I'm gonna just stick with this, like even if you really don't believe in what you're saying? Well, today I'm here to answer the question for you. What did I discover and now conclude from the group process while debating a value resolution about climate change? And I realized two main things. First of all, I realized that alarmists and denialists, usually neither of you are completely correct. And based on that, I've concluded that if we actually want to make progress on any of these issues, what we need to do is kind of take a middle ground and find a real solution. Now, this is significant to you because if people, whether it's about climate change or anything, if people start taking a middle ground and actually forming solutions, you'll see tangible changes in your real life rather than just news stories about people fighting all the time. So, the first reason that I believe that neither the alarmist or the denialist positions are ever completely correct is based on the fact that while I was arguing my position, I never even ever completely believed in it. So what I'm saying there is I was arguing that economic growth is more important than environmental concerns. And while I do believe this for the most part, a lot of what the government was saying I actually did agree with. For example, with China, I realized maybe not every country economic growth is more important than environmental concerns. Maybe it's a case-by-case basis. So even though I pretty much believed in my argument, it was not 100%, so that was significant. The second reason I believe that the alarmist and the denialist positions should consider each other's arguments more is because I realized that in fiercely arguing against each other, you lose sight of the actual issue at hand. It's no secret that when Amanda and I came in this room, we were fired up and we were ready to win. We were just so competitive, and I feel like the criteria of the debate almost to me changed from improving the quality of human life to whoever beats their girl on the opposition better wins the debate. And that made me realize, am I even arguing about climate change, or am I just trying to beat somebody? Is this even the point of the debate? And this actually happens a lot with modern debates. So in summary, I've shown you two reasons why neither the alarmists or the denialists are ever completely correct, and why they should instead come together to form compromises. Regardless of an individual's actual position on an issue at hand, people can see a little bit of reason in one another's arguments, and there should be no doubt in this room that the best way to actually find solutions to these problems is through compromise. Just remember how you feel when you're arguing in that heated debate, when you think you know everything. Learn to let go of your pride, learn to compromise, and I promise you will be so surprised at how much the world starts to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Maral. Very nice 7-part outline. Done well. Nice storytelling. Okay, who's next? Come on, we gotta move this along. Who's after? Amanda, and then on deck is Yasmin and Hossein. Hi, Amanda. No notes, I'm impressed.
Don't say that until I'm done.
Oh, you're too tall for my camera. Just a minute.
Okay. Hi everyone. I would like to share a quote with you from sports writer Grantland Rice, and he said that a wise man will make his own decision, but an ignorant man will choose to follow public opinion. And I found this quote extremely applicable to this course because we were forced to dissect so much information from two different documentaries, countless articles, and so many different debates, and we were forced to make our own decision. And as I come to you at the end of the quarter, after not having basically any opinion at all on global warming, I now say that I do think that global warming does exist and that it is an issue, but I also feel that alarmists have conflated the issue a bit much, and I think that in terms of value and policy, other things should take precedence. And I think this is really significant to all of us and to our peers here at UCLA because this class has given us the tools to really take an issue and to be able to make our own decisions, and when we're forced to look at other debates and other issues, we can use these tools to make up our own minds. So, like I said before this class even started, I knew that global warming was a thing. I didn't know that this was even a debate, so after seeing the great global warming swindle, I was just introduced to this entirely new world of facts, of things that people believed. So I really decided to tell myself, okay, you need to go through this class and have an open mind because so many people can present different opinions and it can seem right. So I decided I would wait to make my final decision until the end. And I think that going through my debate really helped me form this opinion of the debate because if that person is so passionate about what they're saying, they're going to try to sound really persuasive. And at the end of our debate, I did believe that economic growth was more important than environmental concerns just because of everything I learned on statistics on indoor air pollution, after reading The Skeptical Environmentalist, after seeing that economic growth could better facilitate the means to address environmental concerns. So, like I mentioned, my opinion has shifted from one of disinterest to one that does believe that global warming is occurring, but I do not think that we have enough information at this point to put other issues on the back burner and put global warming on the forefront. So to go back to that Garland Rice quote, I do think that we all made a great decision to, formulate our own opinions and not to follow public opinion, and we should keep that in mind when we are forced to make our own opinion about other issues. Thanks.
Thank you, Amanda. Feel the love. Start your speech.
Reset. Now I have to reset you. Threw me off. Hi, my name is Yasmin Slem, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I, back in the day, was significantly disinterested in global warming. I'm just going to be honest. So it was kind of difficult for me to completely tune in to the documentaries and the first couple debates. So when I found out that my first debate, I argued 2 debates this class. When I found out that my first debate, I had to argue that global warming was catastrophic, I was really worried because how was I, this disinterested student, going to convince you, an intelligent audience, that global warming was impactful, it was significant, it was this huge catastrophic thing. But then I researched it. So week 1 in the survey, I marked uncertain that global warming on balance was catastrophic. And not just because I felt like I didn't have enough evidence, I didn't have enough knowledge about the topic. And after research and after debating it, my uncertainty stayed the same. Although my team won the debate and we were granted the most adherents, I just felt that the contentions that my team argued, they were based on speculation and predictions. None of it was fact. Being completely honest, none of it was fact. And that's because scientists can't really predict the future. They can't predict human reaction to global warming, or even or have a really accurate prediction of just climate change in general, I would argue. So I'm still uncertain about my resolution to this because of a lack of definitive evidence. So then in my second debate, I argued that the politicization of science is desirable. Now I was very worried about this because I picked up this debate at the last minute, and also I had absolutely no idea what politicization meant. And I think most of you didn't either, because 14 of you circled uncertain in week 1, and only 4 of you circled uncertain in 10th week. So I'm glad that a lot of you picked up on the term. Anyways, the politicization of science, when I was doing my research, I found out that, one, no one really clearly defined politicization of science. Some argued that it had to do with making something political in nature. Some argued that it was about funding. But either way, it was just a foggy definition. And also I found out that all the articles on this topic were against my case. So I had to make original contentions based on negative research. But I think I did a pretty good job. I colored a world without the politicization of science when I depicted a world without the FDA, which I thought was a really strong point. And my opponents, they brought really good evidence when they brought up previous negative impacts of the politicization of science. But I believe that my points, which were more current, the 2013 directive and President Obama's stance on the issue, kind of overruled that. So I genuinely agree with my topic that the politicization of science is desirable. And overall, through my research, I have become I have turned from a disinterested student to an advocate of global warming. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to Hossein. He was here. Oh, the bathroom. Okay. Yeah, Guyana. Mackenzie, you're on deck. Thank you.
You want to borrow mine? I think I'll just.
What did you forget?
Nothing. In the night, imagining some fear, how easy is a bush supposed to bear? This is a quote from Midsummer Night's Dream. What Shakespeare's talking about is how people, when they're at their most vulnerable and on heightened alert, see a threat when it's as harmless as a bush. We've all been here before. There's something eerie about the night that gets your mind going, and you start to exaggerate sounds and shadows to create the illusion of danger. It seems to me that global warming is similar to these night shadows, and that the alarmists have provoked such a sense of fear in people that they are quick to write off global warming as a big scary bear before they take the time with a cool mind to investigate what else it could be. As I debated and now firmly believe, global warming is not the catastrophe that it has been made out to be by fearmongers. We need to be more realistic and reject hysteria. We need to demand open scientific debate before allowing politicians and propagandists to decide for us. Taking a back seat will leave one vulnerable to half-truths and only one side of the story. As voters, we need to be informed critical thinkers who investigate claims with skepticism before we take a position on such an important topic. I first watched An Inconvenient Truth when I was in the 6th grade, and I automatically took everything in this scientific documentary to be verified truth, and the fear was implanted in me. All these years, I didn't even know that there was a real debate on global warming. The media obviously did a really good job painting a picture of the denialists as a minority of optimistic fools, and I bought into it. I failed to reflect on my judgments, I failed to pursue alternative perspectives, and I failed to think critically. It wasn't until this class that I opened my mind to the possibility that things might not be the way that they're portrayed. Looking back, I realized that in my debate, I focused way too much on getting the facts out when I could have been more persuasive and likable like Al Gore. I also learned the importance of organization. I edited my speech a lot last minute, and I just assumed that it would be under 7 minutes without practicing it. And this threw me off when I was presenting. I lost my place in all the mess of edits, and I panicked, and I failed to finish my speech in the way that I wanted to. If I could do it again, I would definitely focus a lot more on preparation and presentation. I chose to debate whether global warming is catastrophic because through the assigned readings, I had already begun formulating the opinion that it is not. Through more research, I found plot holes in the alarmist argument that global warming imposes pervasive harm. I learned that the alarmists had overstated the influence of carbon dioxide, neglected the natural fluctuations in the temperature, and misused inaccurate models to fuel anxieties. Even the IPCC admitted recently that storms are not intensifying, sea levels are rising slowly, and increases in the temperature are gradual and will remain insignificant. They also confessed to low confidence in both models and future predictions. With all this error and uncertainty, I realized that the fear is likely unneeded. Let's keep in mind that sometimes a bush is just a bush.
Good tie back. Thank you. Okay. And medical emergency, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good. Okay. See you Tuesday. Okay. Bye. And Mackenzie, and then who do we skip? Hossein. Is he back? Thought we lost you. Oh, you're tall. Yikes. Okay.
5'4", so tall.
5'4". Okay, Mackenzie, rock and roll.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Mackenzie, and I have the pleasure and privilege, like Yasmin, to do not just one but two debates. And for me, it has been somewhat of a journey. I started on the first day of class and thought, this is ridiculous. We're going to spend a whole quarter talking about whether or not global warming is real, whether or not this is something we should be important. For me, I was one of those kids who went to a liberal school who didn't let the Republicans sit with me at lunch. I was one of those kids in 8th grade who was going around telling everyone that Al Gore, he solved the problem, we know what to do, change your light bulbs. I was the one lecturing everyone in my sorority about taking shorter showers. I also have a certificate that says that someone in my family donated money to save a polar bear for me. So there's a polar bear somewhere that's swimming around searching for ice because of little liberal Mackenzie. So my first debate topic was on the question of whether or not global warming on balance is catastrophic, and I was arguing against this, which was somewhat challenging given that, of course, I thought, duh, it's catastrophic. Of course these are issues that we need to talk about. But it was great because it allowed me to sort of create a deeper understanding and think more critically about this issue. And I now no longer think with such great certainty that global warming is catastrophic. I no longer think that using such strong language to describe something that we can't be 100% certain about is wise, especially as a person who's graduating college and about to enter the world and someone who's going to go into politics one day. Moreover, I've learned that policies and values that substantiate this notion that global warming is catastrophic are ones that we all shouldn't be using ever, just because using such extreme rhetoric really never solves much anyways. Which led me perfectly into our second debate, the politicization of science, which, as Yasmin talked about, is kind of a complicated thing. What the heck is politicization of science? And it can mean a lot of different things, and I think that's something that we talked about. But for me, I stand firm, as I did before and after, that the politicization of science is wrong, that the commingling of these two pollutes our understanding of things that are really important and significant, things like global warming, things that are scientific in nature, and that shouldn't be corrupted by political powers, political money, political agenda setting that we talked about. And this is great, and it's wonderful that we were able to talk about all of these different issues and topics, because for people like myself who came into this class feeling like I knew everything there was to know, Al Gore is God, and there's nothing else that we need to talk about, right? I no longer think that, and I think that that's a good thing, because it means that perspective should be grounded in critical thinking. It should be grounded in the idea that there isn't always just one side to the debate, and it's important to ask the questions, it's important to have those conversations and have those sometimes arguments, maybe aggressive arguments, and sometimes having, Hussein stand up and make you look like a fool because he's so smart and funny. But it's important because we can't always be so sure about everything in this world, and I think that was the big takeaway for me and hopefully for all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. What was the time? Just 15 seconds before you time. Thank you very much, Mackenzie. Next will be, and then Garrett, you'll be on deck.
I'll give you this. This one's better.
No stapler, huh?
No stapler. I sprayed it with some perfume, so.
Good thing I had one.
Yeah.
Okay, you got 3 minutes, go.
Okay, hi everyone, my name's Hussein.
Hi, Hossein.
Okay, so if I had to boil down one thing I've learned in this debate class, it's that argumentation and debates is a lot like eating at a restaurant. What do I mean? There are really two components, service and the food, the content and the delivery. They both have to be in sync, and if you overweight one, then you're really in trouble. If you care about the food too much, maybe they'll put something in your food, and if you only care about the service, the food will probably suck. That's something that I came across in my research and in the events leading up to the actual debate. In watching The Great Swindle and The Inconvenient Truth, I was really swayed by presentation. But I also found that content is debatable. We have to analyze. What does analysis even mean? It means to break down things into their component parts. So essentially, when you hear about 400 people, 400 scientists advocate for a certain document, you have to ask, who are these 400 scientists? What does advocation even mean? Where did they get them from? How strongly do they advocate? So really in understanding that, we can become more critical thinkers and better contributors to our society. In debating whether or not global warming is catastrophic, I had to ask myself, do I actually believe this? The answer was a resounding no. But I had to actually argue for the government. I had to prove to this class that I believe it is catastrophic. I found myself on the defensive a lot because the opposition's arguments were just so potent. Honestly, they were resoundingly right, and I think that I had to do my best to sort of distract not only the class but myself from what they were saying, because what they were saying really did trump what I was saying. And I found that actually in practicing that, I've been able to better recognize when someone else is doing that, either in the media or even people in our personal networks. So that's important. Another thing that I realized is that in arguing something that you don't believe, it forces you to better evaluate why you actually believe that thing. Like Gabby mentioned, a lot of us have beliefs that we don't even know where they originated. What is the source of our beliefs? But over time, they tend to intensify to the point where we believe them like they're truth. And when somebody forces us to look at it, really dunks our head in the water, we kind of come out and say, wow, I don't actually know why I believe that thing. So arguing something that I don't believe forced me to really look at global warming and the sources that have been feeding that to me over the course of my education, and sort of say, what were their intentions, what were their effects on me, and form my own opinion. And hopefully I can practice that in really every value that I hold and encourage others to hold. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that will bring us to Garrett, who comes forward. Thank you.
Alright, so I'm going to start off with a quote by Christopher Hitchens, who is the author of the recommended reading for this course. And he says, "Think of all experts as mammals," which is something that I think this class has really taught us. So it has taught us to think critically, which, well, I think is very important. So if you do not think critically about things in your life, which you can go from believing a proposition such as global warming to be unquestionably true, which most people do, which they defend it so almost, I would like to say, religiously. It can be, it can have some pretty harsh consequences. You could end up supporting something that isn't not just not true, but you could fight the solution to it. So I think it's very important in life to think critically. Before the resolution, I too was a bit skeptical about what was true. I think in first grade I watched The Great Swindle. It must have been sometime in elementary school. And of course, as a kid, you don't have critical thinking skills. You don't know. You lack them. So I think that's why you are indoctrinated into believing in this view of global warming, because you have no critical thinking skills. So after, I mean, I don't know whether or not you believe, after hearing 9 debates and 2 documentaries and reading a bunch of articles, if you can really know about if critical thinking is true. It doesn't matter if you believe it, but the whole point is to think critically about the whole decision, because that's what will lead you to truth eventually. So after the resolution, or before, I still want to say that even a movable authority can still be questioned. So after the resolution, I'm still skeptical on both sides. I like to side with Gabby that I'm undecided. I'm still suspending judgment until I know. But I still will use critical thinking. I side with the conclusions of the global warming because I think that, well, we have no other plan to run this experiment, and if we are wrong, we are doomed. So I think that'd be smart to do, but I also agree with a lot of the denialist claims that we don't, that it may not be man-made, it might not be. I myself don't know exactly. So with this class and with the debates we've seen, I urge you to apply critical thinking to your own life, to question authority, to question people like Al Gore, who is so damn convincing, and even question your own views. It's something that I think we've all seen, a very strong view that we can hold can be proven false. And that's something I think is very important to know in this class. It takes courage and a lot of risk to use critical thinking and to question, but the failure to do so is costly. You could support something that is definitely a waste of time, or fight the solution. So as I want to say, all experts are mammals. Question your own views, and much more beauty, truth, wisdom, and happiness will come to you this way.
Thank you, Garrett. Okay, and that brings us to the illustrious chairperson of the value group. Yay!
May I start?
Yeah, let me focus you. There you go.
All right. How many people here think that prostitution is good? Should be legal. Right. Well, a lot of us are confused. And I think that's exactly how we came into this class feeling, confused. For prostitution, one side says, yeah, you know, it eliminates sex trafficking. The other side says, you know what? It markets sex. It creates a commodity for sex. And that's not a good thing. I think a lot of us are still confused about climate change, going back to it. 58% of us still think that it's anthropogenically caused. Half of us think that it's not, half of us think that it is. And that's a good thing in a way, because we're still searching for the truth. A lot of us, like Chloe said, are alarmists, and a lot of us are denialists, but we haven't really gotten to the fact that there is some confusion. Even though you still hold a belief, there's still confusion in it. There's still the fact that we don't know the truth. This is significant too because a lot of us came into our debates being confused. We didn't know whether we were, going to be debating our issue correctly, whether this could lead to actual truth. But in the end, we did find out that we have a better understanding of climate change. My debate was the politicization of science is undesirable, and I was the government. Personally, I think that I didn't do a good job explaining politicization. I still think that a lot of you are confused about it. I sat down with Professor Miller for 2 hours and went over my debate because of how bad I thought I did. So I think that being confused is not necessarily a bad thing. You can really contribute a lot of time to improving and finding out how to improve your debate and better understand it. Also, like Chloe said, I'm referencing her a lot, but she said that the IPCC and Bjorn Lomborg could be used in your debate for both government and opposition. I think inherently both of these references aren't confused themselves. They don't know whether climate change is occurring or not. And I think that for our debate, it's important that we discover and keep discovering what is correct and what is true. Moreover, also, I think that throughout my debate, I could have did the refutation a bit better, following the 4 steps and doing ARE. Our professor doesn't just say those things to say it. I think that it creates more credibility and authority throughout your argument, and it allows you to better communicate. Being confused also allows us to better communicate our topic because we still don't know whether climate change is occurring. We still don't know whether it's necessarily caused anthropogenically or whether it's from the sun or other means. Lastly, to conclude, I'd like to say that being confused is a good thing. It's okay, and I think that we should all feel comfortable being confused. And I think that's why we take classes, because we're confused in the beginning, we go into it, and we learn a lot. And to tie back, I think that, prostitution we still are confused about, but we should still continue to learn about it and continue researching about it. Researching is important, and I also wanted to thank my value group for being so great. They all prepared really great, and they all did a wonderful job. And thank you again for choosing me and voting for me. I really appreciate it.
Can I have your paper, please? Okay, we'll circle back now to the fact group for a moment and think about facts for 3 minutes more with Kashi. Ah, you're tall. Okay, stand near the screen, please. Yeah, thank you. Oh, man. Okay, rock and roll. 3 minutes.
Hey there, Catchy.
Hi, Catchy.
So, in terms of what I believed before I debated, I took a position of uncertainty. Like most people, I didn't really have a good understanding of climate science to take a firm position on the matter. Also, I think I strongly underestimated the preparation aspect of the debate. It's something I really misjudged, to be honest. I think that overall that hurt me in the long run. Also, I could have been a little more persuasive in my speech. But yeah, in terms of what I believed before the debate, like I mentioned before, I was uncertain, like most people. But after researching it a little bit more, and after doing my homework, I'm still uncertain on the matter. But I lean more towards the government's position, which was, actually my topic was hurricanes and other extreme climate events are imminent consequences of global warming, and I do think I support that, but I want to qualify my support by saying that I don't have a good understanding of what qualifies as imminent as of yet. So I can't say for sure whether it's imminent, but I do think it contributes overall to. I think that global warming contributes overall to extreme climate events. And in terms of what I deem to be facts, in terms of what I understand a fact to me, I understand a fact to mean something that's so well supported by evidence that it wouldn't make sense to doubt or believe to the contrary. So I think human beings contributing to global warming can be considered factual based on those criteria. And in terms of the opinion polls, a lot of my opinions regarding science, climate science, global warming, environmental policy, etc. I wouldn't say my positions have shifted dramatically, but my opinions are now much more better informed.
Thank you, Catchy. Okay, that brings us to what should we do about this sucker policy? We'll first hear from Alexis. How's your project going? I have witnesses. Thank you. On deck, Kayleen, and then Shodai.
Hey, hi everyone, I'm Lexi.
Hi, Lexi.
Let me just take you back to the first day of class when we had to come in and do introductions. And we had to say what we wanted to gain from this course and what we wanted to improve on. I specifically remember saying that I'm not typically the type of person that likes to argue. I don't really have a lot of opinions on things. I kind of just believe people when they tell me something and they seem like a credible source. But I think over the course of this quarter, I've definitely learned how to defend something that I truly do believe in, and I've learned how to construct a debate. And I think that we've all learned about a significant issue that is prominent in our lives, and that is global warming. So before this class, I wasn't really knowledgeable on global warming. I mean, I was kind of like eco-friendly. I would turn off the lights when I wasn't using them or unplug my chargers. But then coming into this class, when we watched An Inconvenient Truth, I found myself believing every single thing that Al Gore said, just because he was a credible speaker and he seemed trustworthy. But then the next class, when we watched The Great Global Warming Swindle, I found myself also believing everything that they said in that film. And that really taught me that you can't form your opinion about something until you hear both sides of the debate. And after we watched both those films, and we participated in and evaluated everyone else's debates, I think I've finally come to a conclusion that I'm neither an alarmist or a denialist. I'm kind of like somewhere in the middle. I do believe that global warming is a prominent issue that is affecting us every day, but I think there are other issues that are slightly more important. And for my debate, I was in the policy group, obviously, and Ariella and I debated that reducing carbon emissions is a good policy for mitigating global warming threats. And after all the extensive research that we put into it, I truly do believe in this policy. We found multiple lines of evidence pointing towards the fact that human-induced activity is the main cause of global warming. And I do believe that a policy has to be implemented, such as carbon sequestration or taxing carbon, in order for us to mitigate these threats that we've caused for ourselves. And I think that this course has really taught me how to be someone that can defend something that I'm passionate about, and I've definitely learned how to construct a brief and prepare cross-examination questions and deliver persuasive speech. So going back to that first day of class, I can definitely say that my goals have been met, and I know a lot more about global warming than I ever thought I would. Thank you.
All the time. Okay, thank you. I'll be using black now. Okay, let's hear from Kayline and Colleen, and then Shodai on deck, followed by Sam, also known as Samantha.
Is it okay?
You're perfect. Rock and roll.
Okay, so I'm going to focus my speech on really what I learned with global warming in terms of creating policies for it, because I'm in the policy group. So I'm going to be honest, when I first came into this class, I didn't know much about global warming, nor did I really care about it. And like, I was kind of bummed that the topic was global warming, because I was like, I don't care enough about this topic to put 100% effort in trying to figure out an argument to debate about. But I've gained a lot of knowledge through like watching people's debates, reading all the articles, watching the movies in class, and I'm actually glad I have, because I'm happy to say that I'm a little less ignorant about it now, and I actually do care to a certain extent. I realized throughout the course that I do care more about the economy than I do about environmental concerns. And at first, I was really straight up like, the economy matters the most, like I don't care what happens to the environment. And then the debate that was a value debate about whether economic growth was more important than environmental concerns. And that really like pushed me to this, like challenged my view on that. And I started to think, well, maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe economic concerns, environmental concerns can lead to economic costs. So I think that ultimately I learned that I can't be just one extreme side, and that compromising, and I think Maral was talking about this, compromises really create policies. Because we can't create policies that are extremely one side or extremely the other side, because that's either not going to pass because no one's going to agree on it, or it's just too extremist that it's not even going to benefit us. So in order to create policies, I feel like compromises are a big part of that. So I was lucky enough to do 2 debates. And unfortunately, when I did the first debate, I didn't agree with the side that I was on. I was on the opposition on whether reducing CO2 emissions was a good policy to mitigate global warming threats. And I didn't like the side I was on because I was basically arguing that we shouldn't reduce CO2 emissions at all. Like, let's not do that at all. And I didn't like that because I do think that I've learned that some of global warming is due to human activity, so that we could mitigate some of it if we did reduce some CO2 emissions. So I was like, okay with that. So really I saw there the compromise of either completely banning it or like, no, let's not do it at all. And I mean, completely banning it or just allowing it freely. And I thought a compromise would be the best policy. And the same thing happened with the fracking debate that I did on Tuesday. And I did agree with the side I was fighting on because I thought banning it completely was not a good enough compromise. Somewhere in between where we can meet and fix fracking was a better compromise. So to conclude, I concluded that creating policies works best when we find a legit compromise that'll benefit both sides. And I mean, just because we create a policy at one point doesn't mean like it can't change and continue to build that compromise. So that's a big thing I learned about creating policies for not just global warming, but really anything.
Thank you. Okay, Shodai. Hi, Shodai. Thank you. You have 3 minutes to share with us your insights. You can come a step forward to the table. Yeah. Good.
Hi, my name is Shodai. And
Hi,
I'd like to ask
Shodai.
you a question. So what would you do when you find some termites in your house? I think most of you would do a checkup on your house to make sure your house would not get destroyed. I think same goes for global warming. There's CO2 in the air and we're uncertain what that could do to the earth. And so we have to make sure that we should reduce it and make sure that deadly consequences do not occur. From listening to debates and reading the course materials, I believe that global warming is the result of combination of natural occurrences such as solar activities and human activities like carbon emission. Since we cannot do so much on natural occurrences, we should do what we can do and try to reduce carbon emissions. My debate, this is significant to you guys because global warming has the potential to destroy our planet and we could lose a place to live. So my debate was on whether reducing carbon emission is a good policy to mitigate global warming threats. And I was on the opposition, so I did research and found some policies that did not work in the past. And those were like cap and trade programs in Europe, and there was some evidences where CO regulation in one country could lead to outsourcing of CO2 emissions to less regulated countries. So from these, from evidences I found in arguing for the opposition side, I agree that we need a policy to reduce carbon emission, but not in the ways like caps and trade programs or using the media. And I want to suggest 2 policies that could be effective. One is to fund developing carbon capturing technologies so that we can stick to the current fossil fuel burning power plants and other fossil fuel burning industries, and we can keep the stable supply of energy going. And the second is to give incentives to power plants and industries to reduce carbon emission by giving them subsidies based on their their level of carbon emissions. So lower the carbon emission they do, the more subsidies they get from the government. And these policies for reducing carbon emission have to be imposed globally, or else it could just lead to counterproductive effects. So since the effects of global warming is unpredictable and have the potential to cause deadly damage on our planet, we need to take actions to reduce carbon emission. No one wants to lose their home, especially when it is irreplaceable. So we need to take action to reduce carbon emission.
Thank you. Silly guy. Okay, who did I say was next? Samantha, followed by Miranda, followed by Charlie, then Niaz.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam.
Hi, Sam.
So to start off with, I have believed that global
Where's your,
Oh, my ethic. It's back.
killing me?
I'm still Sam. Okay, to start off with, I have believed that global warming is happening for a very long time. And I actually know why. It's because my best friend in high school was the president of the environmental club, and she told me that global warming was happening, so I believed her. Well, now I've actually done the research, and I too believe that global warming is happening, and that any difference I can make will help lessen our overall impact for the better. President Obama in 2015 said that simply refusing to say the words climate change doesn't mean that climate change isn't happening. And I agree, because I think sometimes people are scared to accept that big changes are going to have to come. But instead of worrying about the changes, everyone should take some time and actually learn about the topic so that they can see both sides of the argument. It was this research that I did for my debate that actually led me to change my mind on my own debate topic, which was whether the United States should unilaterally reduce carbon emissions regardless of whether India, China, and other developing countries cooperate. At first, I thought that the United States shouldn't have to make a change unless other countries do as well. I felt like we already had a lot of responsibility and a lot of our plate, and taking on a worldwide global issue wasn't something that felt fair. But it was actually seeing Charlie, my opposition's brief, that made me change my mind about this policy. I felt like if no one else made policy changes, soon enough we would just have to make even bigger changes in order to survive without serious health damages. Now, this wasn't a huge portion of me and Miranda's debate, health concerns, but it was probably the one thing that really stood out to me, and in terms of what I learned from this class. And I even included it in my debate speech. I mentioned that we don't want to become a society, that we don't want masks to become an American reality as well, similar to how it is in China. And based on the online responses, I think this actually stood out to a lot of the audience as well. Now, I would never have known about these health concerns if I hadn't done research for both sides, and if I hadn't been looking for ways to defend my position against Charlie. So, to me, the big takeaway from this class was just how much there still is to learn, even though my position on global warming stayed the same throughout the entire quarter. To sum up, we need to listen to the president and recognize that climate change is happening, and that we should give our best effort to make even the smallest difference.
Thank you. Miranda, and bring your brief with you, please. Charlie, you're on deck. Have your brief ready. Thank you, Miranda. We're ready.
So, with controversy comes, the alarmists, the skeptics, and then the denialists. And then lots of evidence to support all sides. So with topics like global warming and climate change, it is not surprising to me that there's a preponderance of evidence to support both sides. My limited evidence before this class came from my parents, peers, geography classes, and one of my favorite movies, The Day After Tomorrow. So after seeing this movie in middle school, you know, with all the fancy graphs and charts and then these catastrophic storms, including a tornado that destroyed my beloved Hollywood sign, I began wondering, could this really happen? Will this really happen? When's this going to happen? Oh my gosh, climate change, global warming, it's real. However, this class made me realize that I need to seek out, you know, a little bit more credible evidence. But from the overwhelming evidence that I did find, you know, through my personal research and then seeing other debates, from the class survey results, and then from the films in class, I do consider myself an alarmist, and I think that climate change is real and the U.S. should implement policies to at least take preventative measures. Because while we might be okay right now, that doesn't mean we should wait until we are not. So I gave 2 policy debates, and my first topic was that the U.S. should unilaterally reduce carbon emissions regardless of whether China, India, and developing countries cooperate. And then my second debate topic was that the U.S. federal government should ban all fracking in the United States. As I said, I didn't really have any formalized evidence before these debates. But then after weeks of extensive research, I agreed even more. Then after winning both debates, I agreed even more. And I typically granted adherence to all of the government positions in each debate. While the opposition did provide a lot of strong evidence, I just saw too much alarming evidence on the proposition side to neglect the idea that climate change is real and deserves a lot of attention. So my beliefs towards the resolutions did stay pretty consistent, and I want to just recognize the responsibility and moral obligation of the United States to work to improve the environment, economy, and personal health, regardless of if others are going to follow our lead. So our nuclear energy proposal was a little bit too ambitious, I admit, but I do think we need short-term and long-term policies to reduce carbon emissions, and then in the long run, nuclear energy might be a good policy. In terms of fracking, I still maintain my view that all fracking should be eliminated, but in short term, you know, we should reduce it, and then long term, eliminate it all. I admit I didn't provide a very detailed policy plan, but I felt that I still supported my stance. So I learned a lot while pretending to be a politician, especially about the role of evidence and time. So reflecting on current and future threats, I now realize that The Day After Tomorrow is based on this weird theory of abrupt climate change, and we're not facing the end of the world right now, but something is happening and something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. Thank you, Charlie, and Niaz, you're ready to roll with your brief in hand, and Shotzi is on deck with Shazidi. Sorry. Rock and roll.
Hi, I'm Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
First things first, I realized that I talked too fast for me to Watching myself on video, I could understand some of the things that even I was saying. So to those of you who could, thank you for your supernatural brain processing power. Overall, I believe that the audience members' judgment was correct in finding in favor of the government, 12-8, as Miranda and Sam have displayed superior debating skills. In addition, the opposition erred in our decision that resulted in improper refutation of the government's nuclear energy proposal. However, I remain convinced that the United States should not take a unilateral approach in reducing carbon emissions. This debate, in my opinion, was significant because, again, in my opinion, I thought it was pretty good. Many audience members cited this as their favorite, and there was a cascade of characters debating. Miranda and Sam were personable and could relate to the audience. Nia sounded very professional, and as for I, no comment. I believe that opposition erred in our decision in neglecting to provide a strong refutation to the government's proposal of nuclear energy. If we pointed out that nuclear energy is tangential to an argument about international political maneuver, as nuclear energy policies can be adopted in both the scenarios that the government and the opposition presented, we might have convinced the audience that the choice lies between unilateralism and multilateralism, not nuclear energy or multilateralism. Furthermore, the government used pathos in an excellent manner, relating the ramifications of its assertions to the personal lives of the audience members through the pollution and mask example. The opposition should have used pathos in describing the economic disadvantage that Americans would have faced. I believe that this would have helped a lot. Of course, at the start of this course, I believe that the U.S. should unilaterally reduce carbon emissions. But I asked Ariel if I could switch to the other side so that I could have the experience of arguing about something that I didn't believe in, which I thought would help me better my arguing skills. But as I started filling in my brief, I started adhering to the opposition after reviewing all the assertions, reasoning, and evidence. And after the debate, I respectfully stand by the opposition's stance in this matter. Overall, I believe that we had a fair and captivating debate. The members of the government have won with the merits of their arguments, and although Niaz and I had some compelling evidence, contentions on the opposition side, they were not enough for us to overcome the excellent debate skills the members of the government have exhibited. As for my super fast talking, it's something that I'll work on, and in the future, in the next chance I get with the debate, I'll try to talk slower. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Niaz, come forward with your brief. On deck, Shazuti. Come forward with your brief. Yeah, we only have Jonathan left. She already did it. And the chair.
No, I'm sorry. Not really.
Rock and roll.
Alright. I used to believe that the individual ultimately shapes his own belief. But now I see that society often leads the path in shaping beliefs. So I debated my case against the policy that the United States should unilaterally reduce its carbon emissions. I'm against this policy. But I realized during the group process that many of my beliefs were shaped because of the fact that I was categorized in the opposition group. And this is significant because being aware of how these factors play a role in your beliefs, you could tell if you're truly following your own beliefs or that of someone else. So I discovered that when people are placed in groups, their beliefs often become aligned with where they're categorized. One reason is because they tend to identify themselves as being a part of a group that has a specific set of views. And the other reason is because while you're searching for evidence, you kind of become biased in the evidence you search for. And this is kind of what happened to me. Before my debate, I didn't believe that the United States should reduce their carbon emissions because if the developing world, unless the developing world doesn't participate. I believe that if we acted alone, others would free ride, and this would pose great costs. However, I also believe that the government also had many compelling points. I believe that other countries would, in fact, look to the United States. However, since I saw myself as part of the opposition, I tried to align my beliefs and I suppressed my personal beliefs. And slowly they became more aligned with opposition. And this shows the power of society in shaping your beliefs. But after being in this group process, I concluded that this policy really, I personally believe that this policy really shouldn't be enacted. I came across facts from both sides of the argument, but I paid more attention to mine, but putting these facts together, I saw that this policy really would bring large economic costs and many, and really very little benefits. And I also doubt that developing countries would follow us out of their own will, unless there's a binding agreement. Because maybe in the future, when, because right now they're focused more on their economy, but maybe in the future when they're less focused on their economy, they could actually concentrate on a global collective good. So although I initially held beliefs against this policy and supported some of the government's points as well, I began to kind of shifting my views against the opposition. And I used to believe that the individual ultimately shapes his belief, but society often leads the path and people should be aware of this.
Thank you. Niaz, Shazuki, followed by our illustrious chairperson. Oh, Jonathan, then our illustrious chairperson. Okay, well, if you have to leave, we have 2 left. Go ahead, begin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shazudi Binta. Most of you guys actually know me by Shazi because that's how I've been introducing
Hi,
myself.
Shazi.
Most of you guys have seen I haven't been in class often. That's because I've had medical and emergency family problems. But other than that, I've watched every single other 8 debates. I've read as many articles I could get my hands on, and I've watched the 2 movies on my own. And here's a couple things I need to tell you. I am an alarmist. I won't deny that. Another thing, I'm extremely gullible. In 7th grade, in September, one of my friends told me, you know, gullible isn't a word in the dictionary. And I, because she was my best friend, believed her. I looked it up in the dictionary. It was there. My bad. But that being said, the reason why I bring this up is because when I watched The Inconvenient Truth the same month, for the first time, I completely fell for all of Al Gore's world. I went home, I grabbed my dad by the shoulders, which was very hard because he's a lot taller than me, and I was like, no, Dad, we need to do something. You need to stop buying gas. We're killing the environment. Help me. This is the same attitude I brought to class. Global warming is killing us, and we need to stop it. And after watching all of your debates, I have to say, because I'm super gullible and I'm influenced very easily, I was swayed many, many times to the denialist, but I always came back to the alarmist side. Here's a couple reasons why. You can't deny, well, I've lived in Los Angeles for most of my life, and year after year I've seen winter becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. If you have to say in 2014 to 2015, there wasn't much of a winter. We rarely drop below 60 degrees, right? The polar ice caps are melting really, really fast. And if I can still wear flip-flops while in the middle of December, I consider that a global warming problem. I find it catastrophic, okay? Maybe not to all of you, but definitely to me. But let's move on. My debate topic was the U.S. federal government should ban all fracking. All fracking, same time. That was a bit of a reach. I completely concede that. A couple things I could have made better with my debate is maybe provided more of a contingent plan, right? Saying that, look, we do have other forms of providing alternative energy sources. Nuclear, wind turbines, hydroelectric dams, everything. But I didn't really bring that into my debate. Another problem I had with my debate is I wasn't very diplomatic. I was very aggressive and very fierce, especially during my cross-examination. Sorry, Jonathan. But my main point with my debate is that fracking was a problem. Global warming is a problem. And even though you guys didn't, maybe a lot of you guys didn't agree with me, I still have to say that it was my job to at least provide that topic to you diplomatically. And that's what I learned in this class. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, give me your brief and come forward so we can finish this class today on time.
We already lost that opportunity.
Begin, Jonathan.
Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan.
Right, Jonathan.
I enrolled a couple weeks late to this class, so I never really introduced myself properly. Coming into this class, I didn't really have any background in debate or argumentation of any proper sort. Fast forward to the day of my debate, I still didn't. That's why I lost. So let me explain a little bit about policy debating. For those of you not in the policy group, policy debating revolves completely around a specific plan, and proving or disproving this plan decides the winner, theoretically. And the plan is held up by certain pillars known as stock issues. Some of the more important ones are significance, harm, inherency, and solvency. If you can prove or disprove these, you can say that the plan needs to be done, and if the plan is still plausible. If you disprove them, then the plan crumbles and the opposition wins. Back to the debate. My strategy was focused too much on the content itself. I neglected communication, and that kind of crippled the content as well. Yeah, so the policy resolution I believe in now, or the resolution I think that happens a lot for most of the debates, is a qualification rather than one side or the other. And moving on to the class survey results, if you look at the results from the first week, you can see a lot of people just say yes or uncertain. I think that has to do a lot with bandwagoning. Since we don't really know to make the decision by ourselves, we weren't really familiar with 3 points of credibility. But I think throughout the class, all of us have become more aware of that, like myself now. Unfortunately, hindsight's just 2020. But since we're more aware of that, I don't think necessarily that as a class we become more skeptic, but we've become more aware of the 3 points of credibility that allows us to make our own choices, and you see that in the survey results of the 10th week, where the replies are more evenly distributed across yes, no, or uncertain, because we've made our own choices and we know now better to find our own beliefs rather than just bandwagoning with what we hear on TV. Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan. And last but not least, our illustrious chairperson of policy, and thank you all for waiting to hear the final 3-minute speech. It's very kind of you. And let me have your brief.
Hi guys, I'm really sorry to keep you. I know everyone's really anxious to leave, so I'm going to be as fast as I can without speaking too quickly. So feel free to close your eyes. I'd like you to imagine a world where everything is made of plastic. The air quality is so polluted that nothing natural can grow. And everything is manufactured in big factories that are emitting more things into our environment. Instead of a milkman or a water delivery person, you open your door and someone has to give you fresh air every single morning. Everything you ever need is located in town, but you can't leave the protective dome of your city because you can't breathe in the unfiltered air. It's too dangerous. Your town may look really pretty, but everything is artificial and your kids don't even know what a real tree is. If you've ever read or watched The Lorax by Dr. Seuss, you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, the story is exaggerated. I'm not going to say that it's not. But I firmly believe that if we don't do something about our actions, we're going to end up ruining our world and leaving our grandchildren with nothing but a giant, polluted mess. I was on the policy team and I argued that reducing carbon emissions was a good policy for mitigating global warming threats. Before I started this class, I will admit that I kind of thought that all of my actions existed in a bubble. If I did something, yeah, I was doing it, no big deal, and it didn't really matter. I didn't realize that all of our actions come together to create a lump sum, and that affects our environment. I closed my eyes, and I was naive. This was a problem. And throughout the course of my debate and my research, I learned that more than 6.5 billion people are burning fossil fuels annually. It's not just me, it's not just you, it's everybody. And when we do this, we are emitting so much carbon into our atmosphere, and this is a problem. The truth is, we've talked about it so many times in this class, and there are facts on either side of the debate, as Austin pointed out in his speech at the beginning. For everything that I say, the opposition had another point, and if I say that humans are causing it, my opposition will say that no, it's not. But what I came to realize is that I think that there's some sort of a combination. Yes, I think that part of it is natural. It's naturally occurring and it has something to do with the natural patterns of the environment. But I also think that what we're doing is contributing to it. If you have a glass that is already pretty close to being full, every drop matters. And that's currently the situation that I think we're in. Our planet is in a very precarious situation, and everything we do is adding one more drop into that already full glass. And from this class, I realized that it's time that we change our actions and actually make a difference in what we're doing. And we talked about policies that would do this, like carbon sequestration and carbon taxing, and I think that even though it's really difficult and it may cost a lot of money and a lot of resources, I think it's important. I know it's not going to be easy or cheap, and that there's a lot of work that needs to be done before we can get to a place where these are even possible, but I think it's extremely important. I'd rather spend the time and money now and save my planet. And in the words of Dr. Seuss, unless someone like us cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to change. It's just not.
Thank you. On that, Dr. Zuska, give yourself a round of applause. Thank you, everyone. This is June 4th, and we are doing a makeup final exam for COMM 102, which is supposed to occur on Tuesday at 11:30 to 2:30 with Pal Fan. And I will give you time signals for on down. And you're addressing the question of critical thinking, argumentation, and global warming. And we are rolling.
So, what does it mean to teach a person how to be critical? This was the beginning question that John Passmore posed in his essay on teaching to be critical. Now, Passmore spent a good majority of his essay arguing about what critical thinking is not. He specifically, Passmore argues that 1, critical thinking is not just about knowing or imparting a lot of facts. 2, critical thinking is not just a skill that you can learn from reading a book. 3, critical thinking is not a habit that is meant to be drilled into people. And 4, critical thinking is more than just a character trait. Now, I agree with Passmore on several of these points, but what I do not believe is that the 4 components he listed, facts, skills, habit, and character, are as inconsequential to critical thinking as he suggests. I believe that individually these components do not constitute the act of thinking, but that by thoroughly integrating all 4 components, one can be a critical thinker. So to address Passmore's first point about facts, yes, it takes more than just knowing a bunch of facts about the importance of criticism or about Socrates and the Socratic method to be a critical thinker. But what my own personal experience from reading the textbook for this class and becoming exposed to a lot of the facts about the argumentation process for the first time has shown me that the point of knowing all these facts and principles about argumentation is that I can have is to build a foundation on which my criticisms and thought can build on. It's very difficult to start thinking critically about some things when you don't have any facts to ground your thinking or any adequate understanding to make criticisms about.
Good.
So now to address Passmore's second point about skills, where he states that critical thinking isn't a skill that can be taught from just reading books, because then you only learn how to solve the problems and exercises in the book and not the ones in real life. And my response to this is, it goes back to my prior point about how the things we learn from reading books can act as a foundation for critical thinking. By becoming exposed to the questions and exercises in the book, you still gain a great deal of familiarity and understanding about the type of problem that may exist in the real world. And by learning how to tackle the problems and exercises in the book, you start to learn what techniques work and what doesn't work. And you build a repertoire of skills and kind of a model of how to possibly approach a problem. And even though this repertoire of skill and this model may not be perfectly applicable to real life, it still gives you something to sort of fall back on when you're faced with an unfamiliar or challenging problem. Good. And so for Passmore's third point, he discusses the error of seeing critical thinking as a habit. And specifically he shuns the act of teaching people stock responses and stock answers. Now, for me, I actually believe that habits can be very good to critical thinking as long as you build the correct habit. And some of the useful habits that I built during through the course of this class is that, and some useful habits that I built during this class came a lot from doing the argumentation journals that were assigned. Because I was doing these journals a lot on a regular and weekly basis, I became very used to the process of breaking down an argument and of always being on a constant lookout for assumptions and fallacies. And I developed the habit of always questioning people's assertion and just not taking things at face value. So, and these are all, in my opinion, very essential aspects of what critical thinking entails. Now, for Passmore's final point, he states that critical thinking that the problem with thinking that critical thinking is about character is that it becomes very hard then to teach people critical thinking, because then how do you teach people how to be a certain way? And specifically he talks about how schools can be very constraining on teaching critical thinking, and he even states that having debates in schools are not sufficient to developing a genuine critical spirit. Now, I very much disagree with this statement, because from the debates that I have in class, I think that having a debate is one of the best way to foster a critical spirit. Because what happens in a debate is people are often forced to kind of take up and defend a belief that they don't have. So as a result, they become exposed to both the pros and cons of their beliefs, and they're forced to re-examine the way they think. And this forces them to be much more open and critical about all the different sides and perspectives. And this, I believe, is the essence of what critical thinking is about. So just to end my speech, I want to go back and answer Passmore's initial question. What does it mean to teach a person how to be critical? Based on what I have learned in this class, I believe that teaching a person to be critical means first providing them with the tools and foundation to be able to even confront the problems in the first place, and then providing them with an open and respectful forum in which they can practice and kind of learn for themselves through trial and error the do and don'ts of critical thinking. Because critical thinking, as I have learned, is definitely a very arduous process, and it can be very difficult to learn, but it's definitely one that is worth making. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Stay up there a minute. Let's have a little dialogue about what you had to say. That was 5:46, but I let you go on because I liked what you were saying. I like the way you organized and used a refutational pattern to organize your speech. You cut out the fluff of having kind of an introduction or a thesis or a preview or any rhetoric or a summary or a conclusion or a tie back. You just got to the meat of what you wanted to say, which was okay. I think that the first thing I think would have been helpful was if you had, and again, hopefully, let's see, is this 5 pages? Yeah. I guess you do in here, you talk about what Sillars and the textbook and the argumentation thing and that sort of refutation and fallacies, pathos leads, and you got those principles as a foundation gave you, so that was good. Now, as a skill, I think that, which is why when I came here 38 years ago, I used to not give any in-class debates, and I did only lecturing and had paper and pencil tests. But what struck me was the students who were best at regurgitating the material still couldn't argue very well. And so there was that skill component that was lacking. And so I felt that by incorporating some of the doing with theory with practice, that we got the best of both worlds. So that was the thing about the skill. But your point about skill is well taken. On habit, I think the ARE and the 4 steps of refutation are good. I like the things you detailed about the journals. As I said, I think you heard me say in the first class meeting, many students tell me the journals were just very valuable things to do, writing them up and doing them religiously, finding the fallacies, forcing to think about the arguments and the counter-arguments and doing the analysis was very valuable. On the BS detector, you finally come to address it here in your essay. You didn't talk about it much here. Character trait is tricky.
Yeah, that one was
Yeah, that's
kind of hard.
Yeah, because that's really formed over a long period of time, and I think that he says debates are not sufficient, and they get into sophist. He has the philosopher's view of debate is getting into
I
trickiness.
didn't particularly like what he said.
Yeah. But we got the back and forth between the debaters, especially in cross-examination. So I think that overall you got what I was after in this assignment. I would say just a little bit more, and I think you did some storytelling with your personal anecdotes about when I was doing my journals, and if you could have mentioned when my debate and that sort of thing, that also would have helped too. But you got the job done. You did a good job. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.